Hey guys, in this video I'm comparing these three cameras from Panasonic, the GX-85, the G7, and the G85. Now this is intended to really be a buyer's guide for those of you who are perhaps new to the Panasonic Lumix lineup, or maybe you have one of these cameras and you're looking at upgrading and want to see new features the other models have. I'll have buying links posted below in the description, so check those out for current pricing. Alright, let's get started. So here are the three cameras, the GX-85, the G7, and the G85. I'm going to start talking about the similarities between these three cameras, and then I'll go into what makes each one of these a little bit more unique. All of these cameras have the same 16 megapixel micro four thirds size sensor inside of them. Now the GX85 and the G85 don't have an anti-aliasing filter, which will, according to Panasonic, result in another 10% in increased sharpness. A disadvantage of this is moire, but so far I haven't noticed it. Two of these cameras are identical in size, and all three have the same resolution. They record in both full HD video at 28 megabits per second and 4K video at 100 megabits per second. Now all of these cameras have built-in Wi-Fi, which allows you to easily transfer photos, use your phone as a monitor, and even control the camera. You can shoot both RAW and JPEG images. Now there's no log with these cameras, but there is a Sign-like D profile available on the G7 and the G85, and there's a hack for the GX85 to make this available. Panasonic is not known for their autofocus. In fact, all three cameras use contrast-based autofocus, which isn't the best focusing technology. From my experience, autofocus is slightly better on 1080p versus 4K, but not enough to where it competes with the likes of Sony, Canon, or Nikon. If autofocus is a must-have, you should look elsewhere, as picking up one of these cameras will probably frustrate you to no end. Other similarities between these cameras is the 4K photos, post-focus, bracketing, bulb mode, or in the case of the GX85, touch mode, where you tap the screen to take a photo instead of using a remote shutter. Both the GX85 and the G85 have a newer electromagnetic shutter, which is lacking in the G7. With the combination of in-body image stabilization, new shutter, a lack of anti-aliasing filter, both the GX85 and the G85 should take slightly sharper photos than the G7. One great positive with all these cameras is they all use the same lens mount, so you can use the same exact lens mount across all three cameras. Now that we've discussed the main similarities, let's talk about some things that make them unique from one another, starting with the GX85. The GX85 was released in May of 2016, so if you're watching this in 2019, it's a 3-year-old camera. It has in-body image stabilization, HDMI pass-through. The pass-through is important if you plan on using an external monitor. The GX85 doesn't have a microphone input, remote shutter port, or an articulating screen. One other feature which a lot of videos are missing is the focus type button. The focus type can change from autofocus single or flexible, autofocus continuous, and manual focus. You have to access this through the quick menu on the GX85. Meaning if you're in the middle of recording with focus set to autofocus flexible, there's no way to change to manual focus without stopping the recording. Now there's workarounds you can use, but I thought it was a difference worth mentioning. I typically shoot in manual, so it has not been a problem for me. Other attributes that separate this camera from the G7 and the G85 is a small electronic viewfinder. It's tiny, you can barely fit your eye into it. The buttons here are also smaller than the other two cameras, but this camera is designed to be a light, portable camera, perfect for traveling. If you're new to photography, this is a great camera to get started with. Right now, Panasonic is offering a 3-year warranty on their products, and you can purchase this camera today in May of 2019 for $500, which includes 2 lenses. Considering just the lenses alone cost $300, you're really getting the camera body for $200. That's a phenomenal deal. Next, let's take a look at the G7. Out of these cameras, this is actually the oldest of the three. Released in June of 2015, unlike the GX85, the G7 does not have in-body image stabilization or HDMI pass-through while recording. This is an important point to mention, as I've seen multiple people on the internet that have bought these cameras and have returned them based on this one point alone of the HDMI pass-through. However, there's several points worth mentioning over the GX85s, such as the mic input, remote shutter port, and articulating screen, which all of these are included in the G7. The body style is also similar to the DSLR models. The buttons are also bigger on the G7 compared to the GX85, and the focus type and modes, which contains burst mode, 4K photo mode, timer, time-lapse, bracketing, is also available on the left side as a dial. Now this is a fantastic camera, and if you're new to videography or photography, you can pick it up for $500 with the 14-42 lens. Now I mentioned earlier if this was still good to buy in 2019. I think it's a fantastic camera if you're on a budget, but really for $150 more than the G7, you can get the G85, which I think is worth the full upgrade from the G7 to get the in-body image stabilization and the HDMI pass-through. So if you're on the fence about the G7 and the G85, get the G85. I've seen the G85 as low as $650 this month in May of 2019. Another thing, the G7 feels like a toy compared to the G85's build quality. Not to say the G7 is any less capable, it's just the build quality feels more robust on the G85. Now both of these have a really good grip, unlike the GX85 rangefinder model. Now let's talk a little bit about the G85. All the things lacking in both the G7 and the GX85, the G85 has. The in-body image stabilization, the HDMI pass-through, the articulating screen, the microphone input, the remote shutter port, a USB port, bigger buttons, bigger EVF than the GX85, and slightly nicer looking, and as I mentioned earlier, the better build quality than the G7. Now, if you have the GX85 and a G7 and you want an upgrade, the latest model as of May 2019 is the G95. If that is out of your budget, get the G85. Hands down, you will not regret it. If you already have a G85 and want another B cam, well, consider getting another G85. I'm not kidding. With both the GX85 and the G7 missing some important features, the G85 is quite an attractive price at $650. Alright, so let's summarize the pros and cons to these and who these cameras are for. If you know you'll be doing photography and no video, get the GX85. If you want to do both photo and video, get the G85. Now, if you're on a budget and you want to do photo and video, you have no choice but to get the G7. In all, these cameras are great to get started with. Regardless of which one you end up with, you're not going to regret it. You may wish you had some features and whatnot, but you could always upgrade in the future. In all, these cameras are great to get started with, and you're getting into the Panasonic Micro Four Thirds system, which has a ton of lenses and accessories available. So that's it for this three-way comparison video. It was a long video, but hopefully you guys learned a whole lot from it and enjoyed it. If you're not yet subscribed to this channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video. I'll have buying links down below to Amazon. By using those, you help support the channel, so thank you guys so much for your likes and comments and support. Stay tuned for more and have a nice day.